Hi, Jasmine here. Feeling great today, sober and fabulous. So, today I want to talk about honesty and how that has helped me in my recovery and every day that helps me stay sober. Before I went into rehab, I was not being honest with anyone. And mostly I was not being honest with myself. I kept telling myself that I was okay, that this was normal. I, made up so many excuses to myself. And then that went into lying and making excuses to everyone around me. That made me have this sense of security. I'd wear my mask, that I had all my stuff together, that I was doing great things. And inside, I was falling apart. I had no sense of direction, no sense of connection to anyone because I was lying. And I can't stress enough about the connection to myself. So going into rehab, I was finally honest. Leading up to it, I admitted that I was an addict, an alcoholic, and that I needed help. And that was that was the first step in me just, breaking down those walls, taking off those masks. And there's such a relief in being honest. There really is. There's nothing to remember, nothing to worry about. What story did I get right? Did I tell this person that? So just being completely honest about what I was doing, where I was going, that changed everything. And then when I got into rehab, I was finally honest about everything that I had done, everything that was done to me. And they ask you all those questions, at least the one I did. I went through that down to how much you used, who you used it with. I mean, it was like, wow, you guys are really getting in deep. But it allowed me to really open up and embrace that honesty. So every time I was in group, if I was journaling, I was just being honest. I was saying things that I had never said before. I was afraid to say things. And with me finally opening up and being honest, that fear went away. No one was there to hurt me. I wasn't going to hurt myself. If anything, I felt such a relief, and I felt a connection with the people that I was talking to. And that trickled into my aftercare, meeting my therapist. This is the first therapist that I've ever had that I've been 100% honest with about myself. And that makes a huge difference in my therapy as well, because I'm not holding anything back. And when it comes to having a desire to use, now I've talked about in the past two videos how I don't have a desire to drink. And that is absolutely amazing. The thought is still there. And before this happened to me, a couple months ago, I did have a desire to drink. That was one of the main things I was struggling with, was just so frustrated. I didn't want to drink. I was ready to quit everything, but I would have these desires, and I thought I was missing out on something. And to use, I definitely contemplated using, not really seeking it out, but just that immediate gratification, the feeling of the numb, of the high, of the escape from my mind. And I learned in rehab about telling on myself, about talking about it. So one day, it was just so funny how it happened. Another person in the group I was in raised her hand. She's like, I gotta tell on myself, I've been thinking about drinking. And I sat there and I was like, wow, this is meant to be. I'm next. So after she talked, I raised my hand and I was like, right there with you. I have really been thinking about drinking. When I get out of here, and or using, kind of setting up who I'd run into, where I'd go, how I could do it without anyone knowing. And as I talked about it, as I said it, I released a lot of the power that it was holding on me, because it wasn't a secret anymore. And I felt so good. I looked at her, either in that moment or afterwards, probably both. I was like, do you feel better? Because I feel like so much better. And they talk about, in rehab, they give you techniques on what to do when these desires come about. And one of the biggest things was playing the tape through. So not just remembering what I imagined to be the good times of drinking, of using, but to finish through, like, how am I going to feel the next day? How am I going to feel when I'm trying to pretend that I'm not using, but I am? How awkward, how paranoid I'm going to feel. And then also how physically I'm going to feel. I had not had a drink when this first happened in rehab in like over a month. So the physical aspect of it, and especially now that I'm almost 10 months sober, when I think about how I would physically feel, I would feel horrible. I know that. My body has always rejected things that shouldn't be in it. And I'm grateful for that. And I did not listen to my body for so many years. I continued to get hangovers. I continued to get sick, whether it was drinking or drugs. And my body was like, hey, we don't want this in here. Stop, get your shit together. And I was like, I don't know, I'm fine. My body's just, I would make up excuses that I can't even remember because they were so lame. So being honest. And then even as in this past 10 months of sobriety, I've gone into situations where I thought I was going to be fine when it came to drinking or wanting to drink or use. And one instance that sticks with me so clearly would be Christmas time. So this year at Christmas, I felt fine being sober. And then I realized that this was my first sober Christmas since I was 17, probably. And I had a couple of moments of thinking to myself, like, well, I should have a drink. I should do something. I should, seek this out. And what I did after I thought about it and just, first I paused with it. I didn't do, even though my body was like, you can do it, it'll be fine. I didn't do it. I paused. And then when I was around people I was comfortable with, I was with my boyfriend and a mutual friend of ours, and I told them how I was feeling. I was like, hey guys, I feel like drinking. I don't want to drink, but I feel like it. And the more I talked about it, the more comfortable I felt. And being honest and getting out how I was feeling, it alleviated the power of that feeling. And, they were able to tell me how proud they were of me for not doing it and for feeling comfortable enough to talk to them about it. And it gave me a sense of goodness and pride in that. And that, then the next day I was like, I just spent my first Christmas day sober, and I changed that neural pathway in my brain. New Year's was the same thing. And so I was already kind of prepared that it was going to happen because it had happened on Christmas, and it did. And I didn't want to, but I talked about it. I find that talking about it, even to myself out loud, has such an impact on how I feel. I will reach out to some of my friends that I made in rehab or aftercare if I'm having a really bad day. And I'm like, hey, I'm just not feeling good. And, the responses I get back are, I'm here for you. Call me anytime. It's incredible the connections I've made in this journey. And I'm so very grateful for them. And I feel the same way towards other people. I've had people reach out to me. And sometimes it's just about talking about it. That is one of the biggest things. And I've learned that in talk therapy, for sure. I had a therapist years ago that told me, she told me about me. So I'm holding on to this anger towards this person. What's it doing to that person? Are they angry? Are they feeling that anger? Are they feeling pain? And she wasn't being sarcastic or rude about it. She just gave me that flip of perception and that insight that all I was doing by holding on to that anger was hurting me. And so when I have a desire to drink or use, all that I'm doing is giving it power if I don't talk about it, if I'm not honest about it. And I feel like it can be applied to so many things. I did talk about, my trauma when I first talked about that and started to open up and just in that moment how I felt. When you're in group therapy, sometimes things come up. Sometimes people say things, or the counselor will say things that just kind of spark or trigger a feeling. And I show my emotions. I flush very easily. I have this beautiful pale skin. And it got to the point, I was in a 60-day rehab, that the people that I had been in there with the longest, they would see it. I knew I was waiting for whoever was talking to finish. I had to talk and get out what was inside of me. And I can remember one day someone sitting next to me was like, Jasmine needs to talk. She needs to get this out. And it's, I felt great knowing that they had that connection with me. And it was true. There were just times it could have been like a past relationship, could have been a decision I made. But in that moment, I was like, okay, I'm ready to release this. I'm ready. Let's get it out there. And as I've grounded myself in therapy, and I work on it every day, I do affirmations. I love YouTube affirmations. I listen to a 21-minute affirmation. Been listening to it since August, I think. Late August, maybe early September. And it's 21 minutes of an affirmation. Listen to it. I prefer being in my car when I listen to it. I can do it at home. But there's just something in, personal space. I'm by myself in my car. So on my way to work, I listen to that. And then I found another great affirmation on YouTube about your gut health. And our gut health is just so important. Our feelings sit in our gut. My feelings, I can't speak for everyone. My feelings sit in my gut. And when I'm upset, I feel like I have a stomach ache. And so these affirmations I do daily, that one, the gut affirmation, I do on my way home from work. And if I don't work, I'll just go out for a drive. I've got a couple of different loops that I take, and it's, about a half an hour drive. So I get those in. I always feel so fantastic after doing my affirmations. I write affirmations. I keep them in front of me. I say them to myself all the time. And I knew that going into rehab, those things were going to help me. Positive quotes help me. Just reading different material, whether I'm online or reading a book. I really enjoy hearing someone else's, take on things and then applying it to myself. Maybe it's something that I just want to say every day. The serenity prayer is also one of, it's a beautiful prayer. And it calms me, and it probably is timed that way too. It probably takes that 20, 30 seconds to say it, to do, to reflect. And anytime I go into a meeting, I feel like I can just be open and honest, and I can talk about how I'm feeling, whether it's good, whether it's bad, and knowing that there's honesty there. My relationship with my sponsor, I know I can be honest with her about anything. And it's so important to know that when you want to be vulnerable, that it's there, that it's allowed. And I thank, organizations like AA and NA for just being there. It's absolutely incredible. It's the people that are in it that make it. And I appreciate therapists. I'm going to say it every single time I'm on here. If you have just an inkling of desire to talk to someone, please reach out. There's so many ways there. You can Google therapists in your area. You can have therapy online now. Talk therapy is so important. And if you need help with drugs and alcohol, I suggest rehab. I would not be here where I am today without the rehab that I went to, without the aftercare that I went to. And it's also the work that I put into it. And I thank my therapist for reminding me about that, because I've put work into it. I want this to work. Every day do I wake up, actually I do wake up pretty happy, but I have moments where I'm frustrated. And actually a couple of months ago, and maybe not even that long ago, maybe in a couple of weeks, I was starting to feel stagnant. I had stopped going to meetings. I was just doing the motions and not really feeling that into what I was doing. And I ran into someone that I know. She is 5 years sober, so beautiful. And she was like, hey, I go to this meeting. Why don't you join me? And so that changed. I now am doing it. And I've also made another friend. So there's just so many things to look out for. And there are meetings online, if you feel uncomfortable leaving your house or it's 1 o'clock in the morning and you need to talk. It's so amazing that we have that we have these avenues to go to. And I'm just going to keep talking every day. I feel incredibly motivated to share how I feel, what I do whenever I'm struggling, or what I do when I'm super happy. I feel like when I first got into rehab, I was like, man, I'm going to miss out on all the good times. Like, say goodbye to fun. And it's so not true. I had a great counselor that she was like, you guys have no idea. She's like, when you start to do things sober, it's a different world. And I am on that path. I am enjoying my sobriety. This is not a sad time for me. And that's something that I want to share also. But if it is a sad time for you, that's okay. I'm hoping that I encourage you. I don't want to be somebody that's like, oh, she's so happy. And I may be annoyingly positive, and I'm okay with that as well, because I feel like it's my calling to share this, to share just where I am. And I hope that you have a lovely evening. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back again tomorrow. Thanks. Bye.